From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Doris Polo. Indigenous people in Ecuador continue to mobilize against austerity measures imposed by President Lenin Moreno. Large contingents of indigenous people from the country's Amazonian region are approaching Quito to join protests that have paralyzed the nation since last Thursday. Mobilizations were sparked last week after the president announced he would end state subsidies for regular gas and diesel, among other austerity measures. On Thursday night, indigenous protesters in Quito released the police officers who were detained earlier in the day at the National Cultural Center. Women led the march to hand over the officers to representatives from the Ombudsman's office and the United Nations Ecuador's office. Protesters spent the day at the Cultural Center, which is being used as a focal point by the indigenous protesters, who are demanding that the government retracts its neoliberal austerity measures put in place in accordance with the International Monetary Fund.
To the Minister of Defense, these police officers were detained simply because they infringed the space we were using. But like us, the police officers will be going home. The government wouldn't release them. The armed forces wouldn't, nor the police. While our young people have been detained safely, we were beaten and badly treated and killed. That's painful for us. It breaks our hearts. We've come here for just one reason. We've come to fight for our rights, to fight against this neoliberal government that has given itself over to the International Monetary Fund. There's only one person to blame, Lenin Moreno. The International Monetary Fund kills people all across the world.
Earlier in the day, the protesters held a mass for their 3 members who were killed on Wednesday's protests. Thousands gathered outside the National Cultural Center in Quito as one of the coffins was carried in for the ceremony. The indigenous protesters were killed when police violently repressed the demonstrations during Wednesday's general strike. The main indigenous organizations have said their struggle will continue, adding that there can be no negotiations with the government until this repression ends, the ministers responsible are brought to justice, the economic measures are repealed, and the IMF gets out of Ecuador.
With the blood of our brothers, we are not going to negotiate any agreement with this de facto, lying, thieving government. This government, this gentleman, Lenin Moreno, should go to prison for his crimes against our brothers. Mr. Policeman, you have a heart, you have a brain. You are human beings like us. We are all the people. You must not be murderers. We are your brothers. We struggle for our cause and our children.
Now, the government of Ecuador has not given any recent figures for the victims of the violent repression, but human rights organizations circulated unofficially the following numbers on Thursday morning. 7 dead, including 1 newborn baby, 95 people seriously injured, and 500 others with minor injuries. They also reported that 83 protesters have disappeared, including 47 minors. In all, over 800 people have been arrested, most of them held at police stations or military bases. Among them, 26 politicians have been jailed. 13 journalists have also been jailed. Another 57 journalists have been attacked by the police, and 9 media organizations have been raided. There are also reports of 14 Venezuelans being arbitrarily detained, even though they were not taking part in any protest. Citizens in Quito have continued to donate supplies and provide aid to the indigenous protesters. Collection centers have been set up in 2 universities in Quito and at the National Cultural Center, where citizens have been bringing food, water and medical supplies for the protesters. On Wednesday night, these very centers were the target of police violence as tear gas canisters were fired inside.
Since the first day of protests, we have provided food and shelter to around 600 people. On the second day, we helped around 4,000 people. And just yesterday, we provided help to around 3,200 people. Last night, the police fired tear gas into our shelters, and some people were forced to leave. We have set up 3 tents, and each one provides food for around 3,000 to 4,000 people. At night time, we have 28 indigenous communities inside the shelter, and our volunteer groups give priority to women and children. We want to thank people for giving us food donations. All 4 universities have also helped to ensure that groceries and water are distributed to everyone. We suggest people do not donate perishable food items. We need canned food, water, cutlery, cups and plates, and most importantly, medication.
And there are now 6 provinces where demonstrators have occupied or taken control of the governorships, which are the regional representatives of the national government. In the Central Highlands, indigenous and other social movements stormed the governor's offices in Bolivar, Chimborazo and Cañar. In the eastern Amazonian region, Napo, Pastaza and Morona, Santiago also saw protesters take over. In some cases, they have elected their own representatives to replace the governor. Indigenous communities continue to mobilize across Ecuador. These are the people of Quisapichan or Pincha who descended on the provincial capital of Ambato in the Central Highlands. It is not clear if they will later head for Quito, but several indigenous communities from the Amazon region of Ecuador are on their way to the capital to join the protesters there. Meanwhile, on Thursday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro condemned the neoliberal and capitalist model of the International Monetary Fund, which he says many want to impose on all Latin American and Caribbean nations.
The International Monetary Fund wants to impose models of savage capitalism, capitalism that does not accept the right to public education of the people. The IMF is an instrument to impose the model of neo-colonial exploitation on the people of the South, on Latin America and the Caribbean.
President Maduro also highlighted the progress made by the Bolivarian Revolution and said that the Venezuelan people will continue to resist against imperialism.
In resisting imperialism, we are more beautiful than they are, in our hearts and in reality. We move forward, a little today, a little tomorrow, a little every day.
Moving on, hundreds of students in Colombia marched on Thursday to demand university autonomy, the right to protest, and the release of funds for the education sector. The mobilization started early across the whole country, and in the capital, Bogota, hundreds marched to Congress and the Supreme Court of Justice. The demonstrators demand that the government accepts the agreements made last December to invest around $1.3 million in public universities over the next 3 years. Hundreds of migrants have occupied the border bridge between Mexico and the United States, demanding that Washington facilitates their asylum process. Protesters blocked the bridge, which links Matamoros, Mexico with Brownsville, Texas, on Thursday, amid frustration that they are stranded in a city known for gang violence and human trafficking. Their asylum hearings have been pushed back for several months under the United States migrant protection policy. The migrants say their only intention is to get a better quality of life.
That they gave us a solution because we don't want to be here. We have been here almost over 2 months already. I have the second appointment, but the real issue is that there are people there who go twice for the second appointment time. Then they have to go to the next further appointment. So the question is, what is going to happen to us? If we are told to wait and wait much longer, where would we supposed to go then?
I have a special child to whom I need to buy a splint and get him through. I have to give status to my daughter who is here with me, and that is what I want the most. I want to go working to the United States. We have no intentions to cause inconveniences to anyone. We simply know that the United States is a very large and prosperous country.
Coming up, Miguel Diaz-Canel is re-elected president of the Cuban Republic. We'll have details after this.
Discover the cultural diversity that defines a continent. The place where art and tradition are part of the same nucleus. Artistic expressions, values, and more. Real life. Fridays, only on World.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en la I.
Dot in the eye. Saturdays. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Cuba's National Assembly of People's Power has re-elected Miguel Diaz-Canel as their president and as president of the Republic, a post restored under the new constitution. A special session of the Assembly of Popular Power voted 579 in favor of the 59-year-old leader. Up until now, Diaz-Canel has held the post of President of the Council of State, a position which disappears with the reforms introduced to the Constitution. Salvador Valdez Mesa was elected Vice President, and Esteban Lazo was elected as President of the National Assembly.
Considering the results given, I declare the Congressman Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez is elected as the President of the Republic of Cuba.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel spoke after his re-election, saying that his priority will be the defense and economic stability of the island.
Revolution is a fight for the future. It always has been, and it is now. A sustainable economy will be the basis for the future.
In his speech, Diaz-Canel also condemned the role played by international organizations and the world's biggest powers to undermine the interests of people fighting for their self-determination and independence.
In a war undermined by the imbalance of economic relations without shock absorbers for the least developed nations, a war has come to use the podium of the UN Assembly to discredit and undermine governments in order to support interventions of all kinds, including military.
Several parts of Trinidad and Tobago, including the capital city, Port of Spain, have flooded after rainfall. Rising floodwaters in the capital reportedly left many people trapped in their workplaces. The flash flooding was as a result of the passage of the Intertropical Convergence Zone. A yellow level adverse weather alert has been in effect since early Wednesday morning. With more than 1 million inhabitants, the Brazilian city of Maceió in the northeastern state of Alagoas is well known for its beautiful beaches and lagoons. But in 4 neighborhoods around the city, 45,000 citizens are seeing their dreams and their homes disappear.
Empty streets and houses. It looks like a ghost city. There's actually a neighborhood called Pinheiro in the city of Maceió, the capital of Alagoas. Eliane invites us to see a house which she had to abandon 8 years ago. A broken house and broken dreams as well.
Every day we are back here, it's worse. The ground keeps moving and the cracks are growing too.
76 years old, Jose Joao shares a small house with his son and his wife at the edge of a cliff, but the walls are cracking. It's the same situation as other houses that had to be abandoned.
There were already cracks before the earthquake that struck 18 months ago. After it, the cracks grew.
At the edge of the Mundal Lagoon, the Braskem company has been extracting minerals from the ground since the 70s, in particular halite, a mineral similar to sodium chloride. The Pinheiro neighborhood has a history of sinking since it was built over a geological fault, but the 35 halite mines add to this issue. After heavy rains in February 2018 and a 2.4 Richter scale earthquake in March of the same year, the situation worsened. A study from the Brazilian Geological Service, published in April 2019, was very clear.
The main reason for the sinking of the Pinheiro neighborhood is linked to the halite extraction.
Local movements such as SOS Pinheiro and other international bodies demand an urgent solution to the situation and point out that the lagoon and removing huge amounts of earth are a dangerous combination.
I believe that behind all this, there's mining companies, but there's also the interest of the real estate business.
We are here to build a popular movement of sovereignty in mining and to demand from the company to work with respect and dignity for all the affected people.
The Braskem company has been fined more than $7 million for giving false information about its impact in the region. They assure us the studies are being carried out in 18 mines until December. The Alagoas Environmental Institute is tracking the situation, but for now, the mines have been cleared.
South Africa's High Court has dismissed the bid by former President Jacob Zuma to drop his corruption trial. Back in March, Zuma requested for his case to be permanently dropped on the grounds that it was politically motivated. His trial is expected to begin next week after the judge ruled that Zuma's application for the permanent stay is dismissed with costs. He is accused of taking bribes from French defense company Thales during the 1990s in his role as the chairman of the African National Congress. Benin's President Patrice Talon launched a political dialogue on Thursday to calm tensions sparked by the opposition's exclusion from April elections. Still, Talon's main foes remain in exile following a crackdown. The West African nation has been grappling with political instability after the parliamentary vote earlier this year saw Talon's allies win all the seats as opposition groups were effectively banned. The president's opponents have called for the return of exiled leaders, the release of his political foes, and for all parties to be allowed to take part in elections. 2 new archaeological sites were unveiled in Egypt's West Valley, also known as the Valley of the Kings, on Thursday. An Egyptian team of archaeologists led by Zahi Hawass discovered an industrial zone, including 30 workshops where an excavation team has been working since 2017. Among other discoveries, archaeologists found a scarab ring, hundreds of inlay beads, and golden objects which were used to decorate royal coffins. This is the latest in a series of major discoveries of ancient relics that Egypt hopes will revive its tourism industry hit by political crisis.
It is the first time that any discovery like this happened in the Valley of the Kings. In the Valley of the Kings, all we discover are royal tombs or workmen huts. But this is the first time that you see an industrial area to serve the workmen who work on decorating the coffins, to a workshop for making all the furniture and artifacts. It is the first time to reveal many secrets for the first time about West Valley. Also, in this area, we found other important things, like the ring that has the name of the Oldtot III, and another silver ring for a queen. This means that there is a royal tomb in this area, around here. This is the industrial area.
We're taking one last break. When we come back, Ethiopia's Prime Minister is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Stay with us.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Guide your body. Tuesdays, only on Telesur.
From here to beyond the south. From here to the Caribbean or further north. Where can I see news connecting the whole south? From Washington. From Mexico. From Caracas. From Quito. From Havana. You can always see the news from a new vision, connecting the global south, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. The Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, has won the 2019 Nobel Peace Prize. This, although his reforms have sparked ethnic tensions, which has led to violence and the subsequent displacement of 2.5 million people. Still, the award recognized Ahmed's efforts to achieve peace and international cooperation, and in particular his decisive initiative to resolve the border conflict with neighboring Eritrea. Elected in April last year, he negotiated a peace deal which ended a nearly 20-year military stalemate with Eritrea.
The situation between the two countries ran into a deadlock, so it needed that courage somehow to change the situation, and that's really what happened. And credit goes to the Prime Minister for doing that. But on the other hand, it was, I would rather say now, it was pushed too fast, and you know, after a year, we haven't seen also full-scale institutionalization of that peace process.
Meanwhile, world leaders have shared their thoughts on Abiy Ahmed's Nobel Peace Prize. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Abiy's vision helped Ethiopia and Eritrea achieve a historic rapprochement, while the African Union head Moussa Faki said the Prime Minister's peace efforts have given the world hope. In Brexit news, Ireland's Prime Minister Leo Varadkar has struck a more positive tone than other European leaders on a possible Brexit deal. Coming out of what he called a very positive meeting with his British counterpart Boris Johnson, the Irish leader expressed confidence that a Brexit deal was still possible by October 31st. And he says both he and Johnson do see a pathway to an agreement in the coming weeks. However, Varadkar says there still remains two issues to be ironed out, ensuring that any long-term agreement has the consent of the people of the north of Ireland, and that there's no customs border on the island of Ireland.
Yeah, as I say, we agreed not to get into the details of any proposals or discussions made, but on the timeline question, I think it is possible for us to come to an agreement to have a treaty agreed to allow the UK to leave the EU in an orderly fashion and to have that done by the end of October. But there is many a slip between cup and lip and lots of things that are not in my control.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.